What?
We are live. Hello and welcome again to another Wings Week in Review. My name is seancowgill. I work for Wings for Life International. Today I got a great guest. His name is Mitch Anderson. He runs the Residential Reentry Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico here. It is from Diersen Charities. His name is Mitch Anderson, and he'll be with us just shortly. First, I want to introduce our co-founder, the one who started it all, AnnEdenfield. She's going to update you on everything that happened this week.
Hi. Well, thanks for joining us this week. I had to make a list because, boy, we have been busy. I always kind of forget. We're so busy every day. Kind of forgot about what we've done. We started the week early Monday. We are going to, in our Wings Works and in our new building, we are going to be taking recycled solar panels and learning how to turn them into solar panels that can be used for wheelchair folks. So if somebody's out in a remote area and the power goes out, the Navajo Nation, they don't even have electric power, we are going to have solar panels for them. And this will tie in beautifully with the ramp project, the New Mexico ramp project guys that make the ramps that go into the houses. And so then we'll have, somebody's now in a wheelchair, they'll have a backup solar panel. And plus the solar panels will be teaching job skills of how to work with solar. And then we're working with Positive Energy Solar, one of our big companies here in New Mexico that is one of our biggest solar companies, training people so they will be ready to get jobs in a really good paying job in the solar industry. So that was Monday morning. Then Monday afternoon, we had our live Wings for Life meeting. We actually had a resident from Diersen Charities that came. And then we had a group from North Carolina. They were doing mission work. A lot of groups this summer are coming to New Mexico, church groups, and we were blessed. They were from North Carolina. They didn't have much knowledge about our work and working with returning citizens. We had to teach them that language and what that is and how we try to help the children and try to prevent incarceration in the first place. Yeah. So that was a great, great night. And the speaker that night was the head of our Albuquerque public schools. She does all the trainings for all the teachers, the staff, everybody that works for our Albuquerque public schools. And APS, that's the abbreviation for it, is one of the biggest private school or biggest school systems in the country. We have a very, very large school system. And so
a lot of kids now.
Well, a lot of kids, but it's just geographic. We just tend to, a lot of communities break their school districts up, and we don't. So Albuquerque is one big, huge community. And so our speaker was Heather Cohen, and she talked about sexual harassment in the workplace. And so this was really incredible about what is sexual harassment, how to report it, all the various aspects of that. And these are issues that all of us need to be aware of, male or female. And I would say even more for you guys, because what happened in the old days.
It's not my father's workplace anymore.
It is not at all.
Not even my younger days'
men have
workplace.
To be taught how to be appropriate in the workplace, or they're going to get themselves in trouble. Yeah. So that was a wonderful talk. And then I'll just go into next week so I don't forget. Next week, this Monday, we've got our biggest funeral home in New Mexico, French's Mortuary, and they're going to come in and they're going to talk about why we need a will, how to get a will, and we're going to have notaries there and we've got blank wills and living wills already printed out. People can actually get a will. And statistically, only 1/3 of all Americans have a will. And so, and the people that I've been talking to recently and of course, our returning citizens, no one has a will. And so we're very excited about this and planning for a funeral because we're all going to die. And when it's suddenly thrown in the lap of a family, it's a very traumatic thing to have to deal with. And none of us want to deal with that when we're stressed out about the death. We don't want to then feel like we were obligated to spend thousands of dollars for caskets and all these things that we can't afford to do. So anyway, that's going to be a great talk. So that is this Monday night at Second Presbyterian Church live. But of course, if you're joining us this way, you could also join us by Zoom. And so that's from 6:30 to 7:30. We know we have prisons in New Mexico joining us, other prisons around the country. And you could join us from anywhere in the world, provided it's Mountain Time from 6:30 to 7:30. You could join us. Then let's see. We also had one of our great volunteers who has been our volunteer of the year.
Oh, yeah.
She has done all kinds of volunteering every day during COVID, every single day. She has been here. She's just been incredible. Mary Briggs is her name. She turned 75. So we had a big, huge celebration for her, all the staff and her family that came in to visit. And then, of course, it was the end of our internship, folks, with New Mexico Highlands University. So we said goodbye to three of our great interns that were just fantastic. We love all the interns that we always get. And of course, we'll be getting some new ones. But the New Mexico Highlands, that was the end of their internship. Then this week, we've had 8 bikes donated. In fact, now just an aluminum bike just came in. That one is very, very expensive. Yeah. And so that was lovely. So we always get, of course, our office, if you could really see behind the rest of the walls here, you would see the boxes that are surrounding us and all the donations that we continually get. We kind of try to put into our 2 40-foot containers that are stuffed full.
And if they need a bike, I can put the number on the screen.
Yes, if you need a bike and you're in the local area, you can contact Steve. I can just give you the number. It's 505-321-5205. And Steve rebuilds the bikes. He now is getting a grant for bike helmets, so everybody gets a bike helmet too. So we want to get the kids out riding. And Mitch, a lot of your guys get bikes from Steve too, because they don't have transportation coming out of prison. And so that's a wonderful thing. So we've got that.
Or maybe not even a driver's license.
And then lastly, before we get to poor Mitch here, very grateful to the donors that have been giving us donations for Raymond over in Liberia. We have one of the board members, the Liberian board members, who happens to be a pastor. He's formerly from Liberia in North Carolina, and he does regular shipments, container loads out of North Carolina to Liberia. And if you don't know Liberia, if you think about Africa on the curve, Liberia is right at the curve right here. So it comes straight across the Atlantic. And so we had some donors that just did Amazon and shipped in directly some things to them. And we are very, very grateful for that. And I announced last week that Mary Briggs, our 75-year-old angel that we had the birthday party for, inherited $11,000, and that money will be going to Raymond as soon as she receives that money. And that will provide materials for refurbishing a building that they have rented for 30 years. They've got a 30-year lease that's already paid for, and they will be putting returning citizens and people in the community to work over in Liberia. So I think that's what I can remember that I've been doing this week. Oh, and then of course we went over to Diersen for their advisory board meeting, quarterly advisory board meeting. So we got to hear what's up with Diersen. And so here is Mitch to tell us all about Diersen Charities.
Cool.
So there you go, Mitch.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, Mitch.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Diersen is actually part of a bigger company called Diersen Charities. It started in Louisville, Kentucky in 1964. I call him our founding father. His name was Father William Diersen. He was working with the Knights of Columbus and just saw the need. There was a lot of recidivism, and he really thought, well, why can't we give them a hand up instead of just constantly kicking them down? So that's really where our company got started. But as we expanded west, we came to New Mexico in the 90s, and there was already Diersen Charities operating here in New Mexico. So that's why in New Mexico we're called Diersen Charities. We're named after Father William Diersen. But so I've been with Diersen a little over 11 years. I started at one of our centers in Las Cruces. I worked there for about 6 years, and then transferred up here in September 2016. And I've been the director here now for 4 years. I've held a whole bunch of different positions. I was a monitor, case manager. I did some social service stuff for a long time. So still learning. Every day is a new experience. But so we're Diersen Charities is contracted with the Federal Bureau of Prisons to provide reentry services to people getting out of custody.
That's a nice way of calling it a halfway house.
Yeah, residential reentry center. So they they're still technically behind the wall, but they're given access to the community to do things like look for work, open and maintain savings accounts. We help reintroduce them to their family to make sure that's still a viable release option. And if not, we help them look for affordable housing alternatives, whatever that might look like for them. And so really it's kind of helping, meet them where they're at, and give them whatever tools and resources they need to put this chapter of their life behind them. So as practitioners, a lot of us, we really hold a lot of hats. We're in any given day, I could be a job coach, a family counselor, social worker.
Sure.
And then when the pandemic really struck us hard in March of 2020, then we all also became nurses and epidemiologists and all kinds of other stuff that I didn't go to school for. So it's been a really cool learning experience. But I think the really cool reason that I've stayed is watching families get put back together. I like to tell people don't really know a lot about what I do or kind of how the system works. So I generally tell them that I'm in the business of putting families back together.
That's true.
When I'm there in the morning when they release, and so I'll shake their hand and say, "Hey, I hope I never see you again." And they know I mean that in the nicest way possible. And then they go take their belongings out to their family and load up the car and they hug and high five and all that. And that seeing people get their loved ones back, somebody got their parent back, or somebody got their child back, or spouse, or whatever. That's really why I think I've been around as long as I have, because I think that's really important. So
that's the payday.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah,
I mean, right here,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's never a dull moment. We could have 100 different clients at any given time, and you have 100 different needs and wants and backgrounds. And so, like I said, you really gotta be all things to all people. And like I said, whatever it is that you need to move on, and I tell them get out and stay out, then that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to connect you with. So that's why it's really important to get involved with organizations like Wings, somebody that can kind of carry the baton off and make sure that there's a continuity of care once they get out in the community. Because once they're done with us, we have no reason to keep tabs on them or anything. But
right.
If I can hear from somebody like Ann that, hey, I'm still working with this guy and he's still out and he's doing well. And, that's really, I think, why partnerships like this are really important, to make sure that we're all connected. And
a lot of people get out and think nobody cares and society doesn't want them. But every week I have a guest on here that begs to differ. There are people who care.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to want to do the work and want to change, but we're here to help.
Yeah. Mitch, I've got a question for you. I recommend to families, if they have the option of somebody going directly home or going to a halfway house, I always recommend that. I think it's a good idea to go to a halfway house. Could you address that from your position where you're at?
Well, I think just getting the support is really a one big advantage.
I need to check something. I've got a note saying they can't hear. Let me see something. No, should be able. Go on. Sorry.
All right. Well, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so one of the things that we've been really working on, especially trying to reintegrate and bring people back together, is involving community partners at the center. And so we've been pretty adamant about bringing in community volunteers to do stuff like parenting classes, nutrition classes, money management, and we have case managers to help make sure that you're making your counseling appointments and things like that. So I think having just that extra help, I think that would be really helpful. And the way the prison system is designed to work is you're supposed to work your way down in custody level throughout your sentence. So you might start at a medium, and then if you do well and you do your, get your GED, your prison industries or whatever, you get your job, then they would level you down to a minimum. And then you do well there, they're going to drop you down to a low, which is kind of like Boy Scout camp. And then the idea would be they would take you from there to a place like ours where there is no fence and you're considered out custody. And then by the time you're done with our program, you're in the community, you have a place to live, and then that's where U.S. probation would kind of pick up where we leave off. So I think being able to get transition down in custody level is really important.
Slowly get adjusted to.
And see, that's the federal system, but a lot of the folks that we're working with are coming out in the state system, and they can go from a level 5, and now their time is up, and they have to be released, and suddenly they're just thrown out into this world that is just so foreign to them.
One of my employees actually told me a few years ago. He said, Mitch, if someone told you tomorrow to go be a criminal, you'd probably be really bad at it, right? Because just from one day to the next, you're not going to know what you're doing. And sometimes if you've been away for a long time for whatever reason, and they let you out the door and they just say, okay, go be a good boy now.
Yeah.
It's the exact same,
That's right.
So I think it's really important to be around, like-minded people that are going to help you move forward with that transition. So I think going from 5 to the streets would be really hard. I can't imagine.
It's very, very hard. Or 35 years in prison and suddenly they're out. And if they don't, so the reason I recommend to families is because halfway houses provide that structure. They do provide the roof. They do provide the 3 meals a day. They have, then you've got other people that are going through the same issues of returning back to society. You've got people that you can talk to, staff that you can talk to, because if you're just out on the street, where do you turn? And usually you end up turning to the wrong people on the street. Yes, yeah. And so, but I just was wondering from your position, but I think from everything that I've seen with people, if they have a choice, I always recommend that they go to a halfway house. Also on the family side of things, I think this is good for the families too, because it gives that returning citizen a little bit of freedom, but not all the freedom in the world. And it gives the family time because I'm sure you could visit again, right? They could visit at
in-house. No, we're still not doing
in-house visits yet.
Can they get an overnight pass to go visit their family? Maybe after they've been there a while?
Yeah.
Okay, but in time, hopefully, it won't be too long now that they would be able to have that visit, because it's different visiting it's still a structured environment, but it's not like visiting in prison. So they still have that chance to visit, but somebody coming home, they need to learn
a little bit of breathing room before they take them all the way in. Yeah.
Right. And the only control somebody in prison has is on themselves or how they're going to try to control other people. Sure. But when somebody comes home from prison and they go directly back to the house, the only people now they really have control over those family members. Sure. And I've seen a lot of negative things happening if somebody goes directly home into the without having a little bit of transition. And we try to involve families as much as possible too. So we do have, when we're doing our case management, we do a lot of family participation, and we'll call them and, hey, they went home on this home pass this last weekend. How did that go? And if they say, yeah, it went well, I'd love to have them again, I wish they could have stayed longer, then obviously that's an appropriate placement. But if they're like, you know what, this dude's not welcome anymore, and so it kind of allows us to attack from both sides. You know, that way both sides can really have better realistic expectations of what's going to happen when this person comes home and they're permanent in the house. Yeah. And so I got another question. I know you've got a bunch too, but if somebody is watching this right now and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going off to prison, or I have a loved one who is going to be coming home soon, what are the expectations and some of the kind of guidelines of what can happen in a halfway house? What can they bring? What are the typical hours of meals, of job requirements? Talk about some of the structure that you provide, and so somebody listening would have an idea of
so
what
they know
to
what
expect.
to expect.
Yeah.
Well, I think let me tell a story. I think that'll kind of encompass all of that.
Okay.
So, I've shared this pretty regularly with a lot of the people that I've interacted with over the years. But when I was working at another center, I was able to work pretty closely with the Federal Correctional Institute that was really close to the center we were working at. And so the reentry affairs coordinator would call me pretty regularly and say, hey, this person's going to be coming to you. I really think you need to meet with them. And so I would take a short drive out to the prison and sit down with the guy and talk about what their game plan was. And eventually he said, there's this one guy you really need to meet with. Like he needs help. And so I went and met with him, and he said, I've done 11 years. I've got one more to go. And up to this point, my wife has been really supportive. She's been, she brings the kids to visit. She writes letters. She puts money on my books. We do the inmate, correspondence on email. But probation, I guess, when the case manager submitted the proposed release plan to the probation office, they went to go inspect the house. And I think that decade plus of resentment kind of boiled over for her. And she realized that this person wasn't going to be out of sight, out of mind anymore. And so she decided, you know what, he's not really welcome here anymore. He's going to have to find somewhere else. And that kind of trickled this domino effect of she filed for divorce and she filed for child support. And in the jurisdiction in which this person was releasing, at least at the time anyway, she was allowed to file retroactively to when he left. So basically on his arrest date.
Oh, gee. Wow. So 11 years now.
So he said, 12 really, because he had done
12,
prior to. So he said, I'm gonna get out. I'm a felon. I'm gonna make minimum wage, probably part-time. I need to save money for my own address. I'm $60,000 arrears in child support. And I have no family. I'm by myself and I don't want to. So he told me, I'm just going to commit a new crime so I can stay here.
Very common.
Because he said, this is the most consistent family I've ever had.
Right.
And aside from that, like just being heartbreaking, now he's talking about committing a new crime and there's public safety issues. And so I said, okay. And I left, and my friend, the reentry affairs coordinator, said, all right, good luck. You're going to get him in a couple months. And so I tracked down his mom, and his mom said, he can definitely live with me, but I also have his brother who's also on supervision living with me. So we had to get that approved, and that one worked out. But so I had him a place to live. So I had to go back to him and say, all right, look, I know it's not cool. You're in your 40s. Living with your mom isn't, the thing, but you're out. And I tried to use his kids as a means to motivate him to get out. Because I said, if you get out and you have like a joint custody situation or just visitation or something, at least you can see them on your own terms, right? You can take them to shoot skee ball at Peter Piper or something.
Yeah, not behind a glass.
Versus sitting here with somebody like me looking over your shoulder, And so he said, all right, I'll give it a shot. But then we had to get him a job. And he had bounced around from a couple, he's not every job's for everybody, right? But we try to teach them the ABCs. I tell them any job, better job, career. So when you first get out, you just need any job, right? Because minimum wage is better than zero. But no one's going to retire from being a part-time dishwasher. So they end up, working up, getting to a better job, into the career you have. Or long-term, we want to get you into a career, connecting with somebody that's going to do vocational upgrading or trade or something, so that you can eventually retire and kick back with your grandkids like all the rest of us want to, So he had a couple jobs that didn't work out. And then he finally got a job selling like brand new cars, like single digit on the odometer sort of brand new cars.
Wow.
And he was great at it. He was what got him caught up. He was involved in marketing and sales, and he was a great people person. He was great with money, great with pushing his product, and so he really excelled. And the first full month that this guy worked there, he grossed like $10,000.
Oh my gosh!
And all the rest of us were like, well, "What am I doing here?"
Yeah.
But so he flash forward a few months after he was, kind of toward the end of his program, he showed up at the center to get ready to release. We're going to cut his ankle bracelet off and stuff, and I mistook him for a PO at first, because I walked in and this guy was all suited up and real clean cut, and I said, "Who the heck is that?" And it was that guy, and so he was so excited. The attitude had changed and shifted to like, "I'm so glad to be out. Thank you for working with me." And that's obviously like kind of an extreme situation, going from one polar end to the other, but that's the sort of work that we're going to work with whatever situation you're in, try to help you out from and move on. And I don't know if any of that answered any of your questions.
No, it does, because yes, that was a great story. And we try to have people find a job that something they want to do.
Right.
And I always say, okay, if you're a great drug dealer, go out and go and get into sales. I mean, and selling cars and selling anything. If you were good, you're an entrepreneur. You've got those gifts, you've got those skills, you can make good money.
When I tell them, don't devalue what you did in prison either. Like if you did prison industry jobs, work for Unicor or something, that's real experience.
It is.
But you got to market it correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
They say, oh yeah, I was a unit orderly at wherever.
Right. No,
and I know what that is, but maybe I'll tell them, look, why don't you say you were a janitor or a maintenance tech at whatever,
Yeah.
Make it, because if they Google that, they're going to wonder, like, what's up with this applicant here, So, but yeah, it's all.
Yeah, and I just worked in the kitchen. I said, well, okay, did you do inventory control? Yeah, I guess I did.
Your serve safe certification.
Did you learn how to serve food properly? Oh, well, yeah, I guess I did that. Did you do this? Did you do training? Oh, yeah, of course I had to train everybody. I said, well, those are all the skills that you put down.
You got to market.
You didn't just work in the kitchen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we work with people trying to do that too. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we got all this stuff here.
That's
So
why we're here.
yeah. So Sean, what questions?
I had a few to start, but I talked to guys that say they would rather do their time in prison than go through the halfway house. I talked to guys before they're going in. I think when my release date comes, I'm going to just decline the halfway house because it's too strict. There's too many rules, and I just want to be free when I get out. I won't. What do you say to somebody like that? I tell them you're going to want the halfway house.
I would question.
It's better than being in a prison.
They've probably heard through inmate.com or whatever that it's hard. The halfway house is difficult, and the reality is, at least with the federal system, it's the exact same rules. You get the Federal Prohibited Acts. It's the exact same handbook that you would get in prison. I think the big difference is in prison, you might have 200 inmates to like 1 CO.
Right.
At our center, you're going to have 2 or 3, maybe even 4 monitors to 80 people. Right. And so your odds of getting caught are just better. You might have skated on that, through your prison sentence, but when you come to us, the eyeballs are on you more, And part of that is because you have to have a high level of accountability, especially now that they're out. There is, you don't want to jeopardize the community in any way. So there is a high level of accountability.
You got people coming from 4 different securities, 30 years, 5 years, 10 years,
so
penitentiary to minimum, and they've got to be. Can't just trust them,
right? Well, so I would tell them that first. It's not any different. The rules are the same wherever you came from. Yeah. And the other thing, like we were saying, is you need that time to adjust. You might inadvertently need, like the guy I just shared about, you might need the time to develop a new release plan.
Baby steps, right?
What you've been banking on for the last decade might not pan out, and so you got to have a backup plan and get some. And we encourage them to have savings and stuff like that make sure you're prepared for the real world. And if this, hopefully it works out, but if it doesn't, we want to give you the tools to have a backup plan, so you're not just turning back to whatever it was that got you caught up.
So talking about savings, for typical halfway houses, they charge about 25%. Now in federal halfway houses, they've made some new changes regarding that. And so if somebody makes, let's say they make $1,000 a month, do they get to keep all $1,000 a month? How does that work?
Now they do, right?
Yeah, they used to have to pay a subsistence fee to cover cost of incarceration.
And this is federal only.
Right.
So if you're listening, this is federal only.
But now we just have a savings requirement. So
what does that require?
The minimum is 10% of your net.
Okay.
But if you're somebody like our, person I was just sharing about, that if you don't have family and you have to start over and save for a new apartment or whatever, we might encourage them to save 30 or 40%.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Because the reality is, if you're in that situation, you're only there because you don't have anywhere else to go.
That's right.
So the quicker you save up your money and get a place to go, the more likely you are to go on home confinement, and you don't have to start your term of supervision with us. And so instead of getting out and binging on green chili cheeseburgers and onion rings and getting your fresh white Nikes, it might benefit you to save more of that money so that you can get a place to get out of here quicker.
Yeah. So your requirement then is at least 10% in savings
Of the net, yeah.
Of the net. And they don't have to pay anything in a federal halfway house, at least for right now, based on current
Well, we
guidelines.
also talk to them about what other financial obligations they have. So we encourage them to get right with child support, restitution, paying their court assessment fee, anything like that. But as far as like for their stay, no, that's just that savings requirement.
Okay. So getting back to my one question that I had, what is an average day like at a halfway house? Somebody's going to wonder, well, do I have to be up at a certain time? Could I sleep all day? Am I required to do jobs? You know,
chores.
Yeah. What is a typical day for someone at least your facility?
Well, it depends. Like I said, we could have 100 people at any given time, and so there could be 100 different days there. What I really tell them is to just remain engaged. Don't sit around and sleep all day. The whole point in you being here is that you have access to the community. So take advantage of that. So if you just want to sleep all day, you might as well have just stayed wherever it was you came from.
Yeah.
But I tell them, if you want to work 2 jobs, you want to work and go to school and volunteer or all the above, whatever, do that, take advantage of those resources. So stay busy, stay engaged. And then while you're here, instead of, having a lot of downtime, take advantage of the classes we're offering. We have, the employment skills classes. Just because you have a job doesn't mean you need to stop job searching. And you can go to, our nutrition classes. We have effective communication skills classes put on now. So just be engaged.
Are those held at the facility?
Those ones are at the facility, yeah. And then we also, obviously would refer them to outside sources, like going to Wings on Monday nights and things like that. So yeah, I would just stay engaged.
So they don't have to be up at any certain time, because in prison, I mean, you've got to be up and beds made and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, it depends. If you're going to school, we're going to make sure you're going to class, or if you have a job that we verified, we're going to make sure you're going to that job, that you're up on time, you're dressed appropriately, you have reliable transportation arranged. And so it's really like up to them, kind of like what you said earlier. You're going to get out of the program what you put into it. So
so they don't have to have beds made by a certain time. They don't have to have breakfast eaten by a certain time.
Well, we serve, so we do serve, lunch all our meals at a specific time. So breakfast, I think, they start early, like at 4:30, in case someone has.
Oh my! Wow.
We have people that work landscaping, and you got to be there at 6.
Be there early. Yeah.
So I think they serve breakfast from like 4:30 to 6:30. Lunch is from 11:30 to 12, and then dinner is from 4:30 to 5:30. But if you're out, like let's say you're out at work, we'll save your meal for you, and you can eat it when you get back, or take your sack lunch with you.
I've seen guys with sack lunches.
Yeah. So that's kind of like I said, it's really up to whatever their specific program is.
Okay.
So.
Do they have different chores and have to keep their rooms clean, and when they're not there, the bed made and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Sanitation's a big deal. Yeah. And I tell the staff, they know how to clean in prison. If you don't learn anything else in prison, you learn how to clean. Yeah. And so if they get here and they're not cleaning, if the clients in-house are not cleaning, it's the staff's fault, because they know what they're doing.
Okay.
So, we really encourage them to, make sure their beds are made and clean up after themselves. And you get that sometimes, well, I have a job, I shouldn't have to have a chore here. And I'm like, dude, I got to work, and I go home and do laundry. And
I work, and then nobody cleans my bathroom when I'm
mow the yard. And I got the sense. So sorry for you, man. That's life. But yeah, like it is pretty similar to, you have your routine where you might get up and eat breakfast and then do your chores and then go to work and then come back and eat dinner and maybe go to a parenting class at night and, start over. So
now they have to have a pass to go out, like work search or job search or check out a college. Everything is done with passes, right?
Yeah. And we have, it's all biometric actually. So they have to have an approved community movement, and it's like to the T. Like it's, you got to be.
So no stopping at the Circle K along your way back home.
So it's if you got to be at work at 7 and the bus takes you 55 minutes to get there, we'll give you an hour to get there. Make sure you get to the bus stop on time, and then you got to make sure you get there. Call when you get there. Call when you leave.
I know when guys come in here, communities, they have to call you, check
right.
in.
Yeah. So then just make sure. All right, if you took the bus and it took you however long to get there, then that adds up.
They missed the bus or the bus is late or something. You give them a little. Is there a little wiggle room if it's not their fault?
Well, they're allowed cell phones.
Okay.
And I'm sure that's what some people have questions about.
Yeah, that was one of my questions.
So they're allowed. When I first started, I'm going to date my career a little bit here. When I first started,
and then we got a question for you after.
There was no cell phones allowed at all, and so that was really difficult because as a monitor, you were kind of the receptionist trying to get all these people their messages from potential employers, and
a job search without a cell phone.
And you can see, late 2000s, that wasn't totally unheard of.
Well, we got along with cell phones for 100 something years.
But then they realized that all right, this is kind of a necessity. So then they allowed just basic phones, and after a while, we were keeping basic phone companies in business because we were the only people requiring that. And at some point, even the free phones, the SafeLink and Assurance and things like that, those became smartphones. So finally they said, all right, they can have smartphones, which did make it easier for things like job search and, you can look it up online and things. So
I understand some halfway houses still don't allow cell phones. I know there's one in Oakland, California. You have to turn in your phone at the front desk and you can't bring it back there and they won't charge it for you either. I don't know how they keep it charged. They're allowed to leave with it.
Yeah.
They can't bring it in. And I don't know how that works.
Well, there's every facility is different.
They're all different.
So ours it makes sense for them to have it in case something like that happens. Hey, I'm running late. Yeah. You can call me and we've even had people just take a picture of them at the bus stop.
Oh,
and just email it to me. And there's your verification. Like, all right, here it was at this timestamp.
Yeah, it's got
okay, cool. I'll give you a little more time. And
so
it makes life easier for us, for
sure. Sure. Looks like there's a few questions for you. I know this lady has a husband coming out, I think real soon, but that's the one that talked to you, Patricia. How you doing? She says, how long after the paperwork is submitted for halfway house would they be pushed out? I'm not sure what that means.
I'm guessing when they would be arriving to the center, to our center.
Oh, pushed out of prison?
Yeah.
I guess.
It depends. I mean, it depends on how much longer they have on their sentence. A lot of that's kind of up to the warden of the prison that they're coming from. A lot of it's, based on the referral type, if they're at direct home confinement due to COVID or if there's issues, they're not going to send them out if they can't be in community corrections if they have a warrant or a detainer. So they might need to take care of that first before they're allowed out to the halfway house. There's a whole bunch of different things that could kind of.
Would availability on your part play into that too? Like if you were full and suddenly you had 10 more guys that needed to come out, what do you do in a situation like that?
Send them to Las Cruces, or what do you do?
Usually we have space. But if not, then we would just take them as soon as we would have space. We kind of do like a 1-to-1, like, all right, I got this guy releasing on this date, so I can take one.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't really, I just got to take the referrals, I just read them and make sure they're appropriate for placement and go from there.
Looks like I got another one from Barry. He says, am I allowed to work from home since COVID is a factor? Not the halfway house, but actual home that my wife and daughter are at. And I guess he's thinking if I'm at home, can I do home confinement and work from my home? I think is what he's referring to. Although he's still part of the halfway house.
Right? I've only seen that happen once. But as long as we can verify it, so anytime somebody's working, they have to turn in a copy of their check stubs to verify like hours worked.
Now they can't work for family members or themselves or their own business, right? Is that correct? While they're at
it depends. It depends.
Like the guy who sold the used cars, now that's on commission, so he may not get a paycheck. He was still allowed to work at the car lot?
Yeah. Okay. A lot of it depends on how we can verify hours, because again, with the community being involved, you have to make sure that they're accountable for if we let you out to work 40 hours a week plus travel time, and then you come back with a 15-hour a week paycheck, well, what were you doing the other 25 plus travel time? And so, but it's kind of a case-by-case thing. I've seen it happen once. And I guess it would just depend.
Okay. I guess he also says, and report to halfway house after working is through. That was part of the same question. I know one of the big questions I get is, can I go straight to home confinement? Why do I have to check it at the halfway house? I got issued home confinement. I don't think they get issued home confinement, do they? They still check in with you first, and then it's your rules, right? The halfway house runs the home confinement program, right?
Well,
Am I right?
It depends.
Okay.
Again, it goes back to depends on the referral.
Okay.
So a lot of that is dependent upon, what the warden approves and what the case manager requests and things. So we've had some people who maybe they have some underlying health conditions and they decided it would be safer for them to be at home versus in a congregate setting in the prison. And so those people were referred for what's called direct home confinement.
Oh, direct home.
So
Now
they
that's
would-
different from compassionate release or the CARES Act.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So they would just
Okay.
come check in with us. We would do a quick orientation, hook
Yeah.
them up with their bracelet, and then send them home.
But you still run that part
Right.
of the
They would
program.
still
They'd
they
be
still
under
would,
your jurisdiction.
they would still report once or twice a week to do like drug tests, case management, things like that. But yeah, they would be at home.
All right.
And even that is still considered, in custody.
They're still an
Yeah.
inmate, pretty much, right? Until
Technically, yeah.
technically,
Yeah.
because they're halfway home, not all the way.
I like to
home.
call them clients. That's the better term.
Better clients. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also call them returning citizens
Yeah.
here, so
Yeah.
that's better.
Mitch, I have another question for you. What recommendations do you have for families? So, like, if somebody's coming out, now they can't visit in person, but I mean, it's somebody's birthday. With normal visits going on, would they be allowed to bring in things? Are they allowed to bring in, hey, somebody wants a new pillow, they could get a new pillow? What are they allowed to do? What do you recommend that they do in order to keep everything running smoothly? And what are some of the things that family members cannot do?
Well, remember that they're living out of a gym locker.
I know it's very small.
so
I've been
don't-
there. I've seen that room. I know what
Don't
it's like.
send them their whole room that you kept for them.
Yeah.
That's not going to fit. So just give them some things that they're going to need, for daily, like weeks worth
Like
of clothing
hygiene
and things,
or-
hygiene. We issue them their linen. And as far as like pillows and things like that, they have to meet a certain flammability standard. So we issue those as
okay.
well.
Okay.
So yeah, mostly like clothes, hygiene, cell phone.
Can they have a TV?
Can have a portable DVD player
Okay,
that fits in
okay.
their locker.
Fits in their locker. How about video games?
I try to steer away from that
Because it's not productive. You're supposed to be out looking for work.
that, and they usually have, you just end up doing other stuff.
Right.
But we do have a day room. They do have cable TV, and we have a library where there's books, and we have a computer lab so they can job search on site. They can Google Map where it is they're going and print out a map from there and things like that. So there is some resources for them on site. It's not as restrictive as prison.
And they can have a car?
Yes.
I imagine if they have a driver's license and proof of insurance and registration, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of glad you brought that up. I tell clients, I'm not asking you to do something that I also don't have to do.
Right.
Like I also have to maintain current registration and insurance.
Yeah.
I also cannot possess meth.
Right.
Right.
So I'm not asking you to do something out of the ordinary here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the lights work and the brake lights and all that.
Right.
Because they may have all that, but one headlight's out and they're driving
Yeah.
like you can't,
Yeah. And it's subject to search, because I see a lot of people that, I'll just leave it in my car and then they'll get it, when they're out at rec or something. So
Gotcha.
yeah, they are subject to search. But yeah, they can have driving authorization as long as they have. I encourage them to have the means to support it first. Like I generally would like them to have a job first, so you can pay the insurance and all that maintenance.
Are
gas.
they allowed to get in someone else's car? Like, for instance, if somebody at Diersen wanted to do community service here, are one of us allowed to pick them up?
Sure.
Okay. I didn't know if they're
We would just
since they're in custody still.
going back to the accountability thing. That would just change the method of transportation, and then that would change the travel time.
Okay.
So instead of giving them an hour to get here, I might give them 15 minutes because that's how long it
Okay.
took me to get here when I drove today.
And would we need
Because
to
on
call
Monday
you
nights is
and
why I
tell
asked.
you that we're driving somebody back? They're not going to take the bus. Is that the
Yes,
appropriate thing
please.
to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would change their expected return time.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Okay. And if I always tell everybody, because this happened one time, somebody came from Diersen several years ago, and they decided they were going to go over to Walmart and go shopping, and they ran into their PO of all the people to run in.
Of course they did.
Walmart.
Yeah.
They ran into their PO, and the PO said, "What are you doing in here? It's not on your travel plan." So I always tell them, no, you cannot start detouring. And well, I only needed that. I said, no, you have to get permission for that.
And usually if they ask, they
They'll
say,
usually get permission.
I need this. Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't want you to go without that.
Yeah.
But as long as you ask, and that's another thing we talk about, having effective communication. You kind of have not because you ask not. And so let's,
sure.
It's not like I was going to deny you to go get hygiene.
Yeah, they get hygiene passes, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a question for you too when you guys are done.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
It's from the Patricia again. My husband has early release, and the case manager already submitted the paperwork for him to be released to a halfway house in San Diego, California. What's an estimate of how long that process takes? Let's see that again. Early release.
I think it's kind of up to, again, going back to
that's the BOP and the case
specific,
manager, right?
Yeah, and it depends on how long they have left. I don't know. It's case by case.
Early release. I guess the case manager calls up the halfway house. Yes, we have a bed available, and then the case manager does paperwork.
Well,
gets it approved.
There's a whole reentry,
whole process.
Yeah, like right? we're the reentry management team is like ours is in San Antonio, and so the case manager, whoever, would submit it to them. And then they would submit the referral to us, and then we would accept it, for whatever date.
Okay.
So yeah, I really couldn't say.
So when somebody gets put in at Diersen Charities, it could also be as like I've heard of a DUI on federal property, so they would be sentenced to Diersen, or sometimes it's a violation, a dirty drug test. Instead of sending them back to prison, they can come to Diersen.
Yeah.
And then some people on pretrial don't have nowhere to live. They don't have to be locked up in the county, but they can be at Diersen until they go to prison too.
So we don't have a pretrial contract.
Okay. Some do. Right?
Some do. Yeah. And they would serve as like the third party custodian essentially. But yeah, like let's say somebody's out on supervision and they use drugs. Instead of sending them back to prison where they're going to lose their job and they can't keep getting right with their financial obligations, that child support and restitution and things. They're going to lose contact with community and their family and all that. They can come to us and they can, maintain their job. They can still, go to church with their family on Sunday, and hopefully maintain some contact. But they have that structure where they're going to, everybody in our program gets at least one breathalyzer a day, at least one drug test a week. So you have some structure, you're held accountable for things you're doing in the community. So I think that's definitely a way better use of time and resources than revoking them back where they're going to, make license plates for 19 cents an hour and not get any of the services and all that.
Now, if someone has got a 3-month halfway house, Diersen, but they haven't had enough time to save up money to move out yet, and they need more time, can they get an extension? Isn't that called public law, I think?
Yeah, so it's kind of up to their probation officer.
Okay.
A lot of them have, in the special conditions in their terms of supervision, they have an RRC condition that says they must reside at a residential reentry center for 6 months or something. Right. If they still have supervision to follow after that and they're not ready yet, they haven't saved up enough or something happened where they need more time, they can modify the conditions to extend their time with us.
Because I think on federal probation, you're not allowed to be homeless.
Right.
So you've got to be some sober living, transitional. I don't even think they'll allow you at a shelter. Do you know?
I don't think so. I don't know, because if I'd like to suck them all up into my program, so I don't think so.
Right. Okay. Let's see if there's any more questions. Okay. How long can a person stay at a halfway house? I've heard up to 18 months. Like, let's say they do the RDAP, Residential Drug Abuse Program. It gives them 6 months, and then they have a year's worth of the earned time credits for the First Step Act. That's 18 months. They could possibly get early release.
I think you're asking two different things there.
Okay.
Yeah. So the with that, you get out of prison 18 up to 18 months early, because you would get the year off, and then you would do the up to 6, usually between 4 and 6 months.
So 18 months is about the maximum
To get out early, you mean?
Yeah, from prison.
It used to be. I mean, now there's the First Step Act where you can accrue credits for doing classes and
Right.
doing
And I heard that's a
programming.
maximum of a year though that they can earn on that.
That I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. It used to be. It was either the RDAP program or be a good conduct time, and you accrue. I think it's 54 days a year or something for good behavior. And yeah, like now the with the First Step Act, you can credits are being recalculated, and you can get out earlier based on a bunch of different things. So
at Diersen, I don't know. Is it rooms? Is it a dorm?
it's dorm style.
It's like open bay kind of dorm.
Yeah, rows of bunks.
Okay. And does that work out when you got guys doing from a minimum security and then a penitentiary? And how's that working out with the guys in there? No problems.
I think
they're all released.
I think
much,
a lot of them try to leave the prison politics behind.
Okay.
And they're really not. I'm running with this gang or whatever. I think a lot of them, they've already done their time for the most part. They're so close to going home. They're not going to risk this forward progress over something that really isn't going to matter long term. I think a lot of them really try to put that behind them.
Okay. Some people, there's two reentry centers in all in New Mexico. So if somebody lives in Farmington, they're here 6 months, and then they get to go back home to Farmington. They quit their job that they got here for 6 months. How does that work if somebody lives far away?
It kind of depends. Part
Can-
of it depends on the probation office inspecting the proposed release plan, and if they approve it, we could possibly look at something called electronic monitoring through probation.
Okay.
Where they do a courtesy supervision for us, and they basically do their home confinement with the probation office instead of us.
Okay.
And then that way they can still finish out their term. But like you said, they're starting their job, and maybe developing a primary care physician relationship and all those things that you're going to need long term. You're starting it now instead of getting started here and then having to start over again. But maybe there's some questions about the release plan, or maybe like in the situation we had earlier where the family just says, no, I don't want them here. Then they're already here, and they can, look for work in the booming Albuquerque metro area.
Okay. I've been talking to some people from Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm a member. I'll put myself out there, but they would like to come into your facility, H&I, it's hospitals and institutions.
Okay.
And I think you guys used to do that. Let people come in and bring a meeting into the people there. Have you heard of that, or did you ever used to do that?
Not since I've been here. I actually worked with a group called Celebrate Recovery. That's a faith-based 12-step type program.
I know about that program.
And they would come into the previous facility I worked at. But we just had such a big turnout here. We actually had to refer them out to a community group here.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd be open to that for sure. I think again, idle hands lead to destruction.
H&I brings the meeting to people in institutions that can't get out.
That'd be really helpful.
If you had 80 guys show up, that's a little different. Normally, it's just a volunteer. You would announce on the speaker.
Sure.
AA's here, and 8 guys show up.
Do they have? I mean, if they had a group already established, we could send them there.
Well, we have meetings all over town. There's like 100 AA meetings all over Albuquerque.
We could do that too.
But there's a section of it's called H&I, Hospitals and Institutions, and they meet once a month. But everybody in that group goes to homeless shelters, prisons. They're just different residential drug rehabs where those people can't get out. So we bring meetings to them.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good place to start. But I would still encourage them to develop relationships in the community meetings, because that's going to really develop the continuity.
That's
of
where
care,
they're going to network and get to know other people. So when they get out,
you're going to keep going there when you're done with us. You might not keep going to the group on site. Now that you've released. So
definitely, I was asked by somebody to ask.
Good place to introduce them to the program at least.
Yeah,
if they haven't
introduction.
done it.
Yeah,
but I would still encourage them. You're going to keep going.
Can they get a pass to go out to an AA meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
For sure.
Good to know. Or NA or whatever.
Yeah, because you can go online and verify, date and time and meeting place, and we'll just put them a pass.
Yeah, no, they'll sign your paper at the meeting. So
we've done that.
So that's good to know.
All right, for sure.
Let's see if we got any more questions.
I've got one last question. What motivates you to go to work every day? Obviously, the story that you shared about the guy making $10,000 a month and turning his life around, because that's, I mean, for me too, it's giving hope to somebody. But for you and then your staff, what's the best part of being in your position?
What's a people business? You know,
It is a people business.
I tell the staff that regularly, that there's a really thin line between living here and working here.
Yeah.
I've had people, you know, clients come up to me and say, "Hey, you remember so and so?" And yeah, why? Oh, well, you know, that's my cousin. You played ball with him. You know, you used to play baseball with him, or you were in the marching band with him, or you know, my brother, cousin, whoever was in honor society with you, or whatever, you know. And so we're very all from the same neighborhood. Maybe I was fortunate enough to have a little more structured home than they did, or maybe I didn't have time to get involved with that stuff because I was doing band and baseball and whatever. But we lived on the same block, and, you know, we all, you know, flash forward however many years, I was working there and them or their family or whoever was living there. And it's a real thin line, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Life's all about, you know, about choices, but a lot of it's about opportunities too.
Yeah.
And I just maybe had different ones or took better advantage. I don't know, but seeing that a lot of those people that I grew up with, you know, where they ended up, and, you know, like, again, like, this doesn't have to be your career, you know, you can turn it around here. And I think being able to plug into somebody's life and really facilitate that change is kind of why I keep going, for sure. And like I said, it's a people business, you know, like it's something new every day. You learn something new every day. You get to interact with people. And yeah, I just think you don't get that really anywhere else. You know, it's a service industry, but it's, you know, kind of social work, and you get a little bit of everything.
Everything.
You know? Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I couldn't see myself. I actually didn't go to school for this. I when I went to state, you know, guns up, go Aggies. I double majored in journalism and geography. I had no intentions of working in criminal justice or social work or anything. But I got plugged in when I was in college, and I saw that need, and I got sucked in. And you know, now I can't imagine doing anything else.
Well, we're very grateful, Mitch, for what you do and the leadership that you provide. So
I know you have a very tough job too.
Yeah,
I could only imagine.
So
it just means the world that you came out here to do this and answer questions.
Sure.
You know, thank you very much.
Sure.
It's an honor for me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I guess that's about it. I thought we'd get more questions, but it's the middle of the day. People are working, and I don't know. But there will be comments all week long on there. And, some final words, maybe, to like people like Patricia, whose husband is coming out of prison soon. Maybe some final words of encouragement, or whatever you want to let the world know, that the families, what they can expect when their loved one comes home to a re-entry center.
I think the best piece of advice is just be patient. I know that's hard. I tell people a lot, you know, don't worry about it. You know, it's one step at a time, you know, one day at a time. Because a lot of people get kind of anxious and worried. And you know what, I got told one time, and I think I've carried this with me for years. Worrying's like a rocking chair. You know, you're doing a lot of work, but you ain't going nowhere. So I think just sit back, relax, and you know, it's just one day at a time, right? Don't try to do too much at once. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Just be patient. It's gonna come. Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll end the broadcast. And any final words?
No, I just want to say thanks, Mitch,
Sure.
because there are many people that will ultimately watch this, because everybody has to, coming out of prison, there are these questions about halfway houses, and I just think it's been very, very helpful, and you've answered them honestly, all these questions honestly, and shared and given the listener and the future viewer an opportunity to get a glimpse into Halfway House, and that there really is hope. There really are caring people. There really are people that want to help you be successful. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all very much. Next week, Goodwill Industries from Albuquerque will be here to tell you how you can get job training, paid job training, and much, much more when you reenter society. See you next week.